Thank you very much. Excellencies, government officers, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to the audience from the region. Good morning, good evening to those from different time zones. Thank you for joining this session titled Learning Journeys from Singapore to the World. We have divided this talk into two segments followed by Q&A. The first segment, Building Human Capital. In this segment, I would like to share how our institute, NUS ISS, evolved and transformed over the last 4 decades to build human capital, develop digital leaders and tech talent. I will also talk about the channels that we have created to share our learning journeys to the audience around the world. In the process of doing that, we also learn quite a lot from this wider audience, their contexts, their challenges, their perspectives, and how they overcame. And that enables us to create a rich repository of best practices and practical experiences. 1981 was a very important year for Singapore, for the ICT domain. The government set up a focal agency called National Computer Board in 1981. And at the same year, NUS ISS was also set up, not by chance, but by deliberate design, to build human capital for Singapore to support the government's initiatives as well as the ICT ecosystem. Now, one of the key requirements that was given to us was this human capital must be instantly productive to the ICT ecosystem. Now, this laser-sharp requirement put us in the right trajectory, and that continues to propel us even today. Our teaching methods, pedagogy, curriculum, content, they are all constantly refreshed in consultation with industry and stakeholders, not only to prepare to meet the current requirements, but to be future ready. So in the next few slides, let me just talk about it. We started off with the Leaders Program, and you'll see a photograph there from our archives. And we are very pleased to share that senior civil servants were a part of this class in NUS ISS in 1981. That includes Dr. Tony Tan, who became our 7th President of Singapore, 2011 to 17, Mr. Goh Chok Tong, who later became our 2nd Prime Minister, 90 to 2004, and Professor Jai Kumar, who was the 6th Deputy Prime Minister in addition to other portfolios. And he is also a Pro-Chancellor of NUS at this point in time. We also launched Graduate Diploma in Systems Analysis. And this program has been constantly upgraded and incidentally quite relevant even till date. Just about 2 weeks ago, we launched the 51st cohort of this program. And along the way, we added in other disciplines. 1996, we added in master's programs, started with 2 of them, and along the way, added in a few more. 1999, we commenced with industry certifications, both national as well as international certifications. And these included process-based certifications like business continuity, ITIL, COBIT, as well as deep technical certifications like cybersecurity. Around this time, there was a lot of countries around the world who were using ICT to deploy their government services. And they were quite interested in Singapore to learn and exchange information from Singapore. And therefore, NUS ISS set up e-Government Leadership Center in collaboration with Infocom Development Authority and Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. Let me just step out and talk about e-Government Leadership Center. Now, we have had the privilege of engaging 6,500 officers around the globe, delivered these sessions in 15 countries, bulk of them in Singapore, but in Indian subcontinent, ASEAN, Middle East, Africa, all the way up to South America. These officers were from 134 nationalities, and we worked with local national institutions such as Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Temasek, Foundation International, and also international organizations like the ADB, the World Bank, and UNDP. We would like a moment to thank them for their continued support to our programs. Moving on, around this time, we participated in the creation of national Infocom frameworks and aligned several, and most of our executive education, in fact, all of it, to conform to these certifications. There are about 150 topics. You can find out more details in the website there. As many of you may know, Singapore is an aging society, second fastest in Asia, first being Japan. And we set up this center to harness innovation, all the new knowledge, to gather that and share it. Around this time, when we were talking about digital disruptions of industries, not only organizations, but industries, we also realized education is no exception. We started preparing for another transformation wave to prepare ourselves for the future. And the outcome, we pioneered this and implemented the multiple learning pathways, leaving no one behind, to have professionals at risk, professionals requiring skills upgrade, professionals in transition, with the concept of lifelong learning. When Singapore government focused on Industry 4.0, we stepped up to the programs aligning to the 8 technology areas. And this kind of an investment in this transformation also allowed us to deploy and implement stackable programs. And you can see the list of programs implemented out there. These are bite-sized programs which can be taken over a period of time and stacked up for professional certifications as well as graduate degrees. Now, all of this investment prepared us when we encountered this lockdown to quickly pivot into this new era of synchronous online learning. We employed real-time collaboration tools for workshops, discussion rooms, used virtual breakout rooms, and delivered about 200 of these sessions in the last 5 months. We also reached out to the overseas audience. We launched programs in Bangladesh, engaged India, Nepal, and ASEAN countries. This mode of delivery is here to stay. I'm very pleased to share with you that there are over 90 courses which will be now available online. We are aware, and it's international participants can sign up. We are aware that the timeline, the time zones may be a bit challenging, But do talk to us, and we can work out further details. But watch this space for more details, right? So with that, let me now shift gear to share with you how the outcome of these investments in human capital, of which NUS ISS has been a very proud partner, how this has impacted our ability to call for action for COVID-19. Very early in February, we were able to deploy the contact tracing application, another variant, which is mandatory for all public places, integrates with your identity as well as appointment system and visitor system of that establishment. This application was literally developed over the weekend to facilitate citizens, to allow them to find out which is the nearest point where they can get their masks. And as we moved to vending machines, the complex supply chain management behind it was very swiftly put together. Now let me end off these examples with a video. Video, please.
Going to Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park in the next 2 weeks, remember safe distancing. And least you forget, one robot on trial will alert you starting today. It's trawling the park to reduce the need for physical contact and human patrol.
For your own safety and for those around you, please stand at least 1 meter apart. Thank you.
A voice drones on in the park, and it comes from a dog-like robot named Spot. It's being trialed for 2 weeks by the National Parks Board and the Smart Nation and Digital Government Group. The hunk of metal has no wheels, giving it free rein to cross terrains and obstacles, as you can see there. And cameras act as the robot's eyes, capturing its surroundings and estimating the number of park visitors. The robot has safety sensors to avoid it crashing blindly into people or objects. For now, though, this metal dog will be walked by an NParks officer, but if the trial proves successful, it will roam about on its own in this park and others. The four-legged machine is also delivering medicine, and that's currently on trial at the Changi Exhibition Centre Community Isolation Facility.
Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, we invite you to join our learning journeys, to be inspired with possibilities such that you can lead, seize the opportunities to transform, and deliver better quality of life for your citizens, a vibrant economy, and a sustainable environment. With that, thank you very much for the attention. I would now invite my colleague, Debashish, to talk about the next segment. Debashish, please.
Thanks, Ashok, and good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Debashish, and I will take you through the next segment of this presentation, which is titled The Outcome-Based Learning Journey. And the three topics that we'll be covering in this segment will be the new learning paradigm, what is exactly this outcome-based learning approach, and as EGL from the E-Government Leadership Center, what research and advisory support we can provide to you so that you can be better prepared for the future. So let's start with this new learning paradigm. So where did it come from and what is it exactly? The bottom line is that we have been seeing over the last few years, maybe half a decade or so, that people are increasingly looking for specialized trainings for specific purposes. And that is what I mean by one size doesn't fit all. And this new learning paradigm has been necessitated by the digital transformation initiatives that we are seeing from organizations over the past decade or so. Surprisingly, there are two words that float around quite frequently. One is digitalization, and the other one is digital transformation. And you'll be surprised to know that a lot of people out there still believe that they're the same thing, okay? and similar thing at least. But there's a little difference. The digitalization efforts primarily focused on automation, paperless. They are generally compliance focused. You want to reduce your errors in information handling, and you are internally focused generally. Okay, so this is not usually seen with our customer-centric initiatives, mostly functional silos due to their need to have a better control over information and data. They take this initiative, what is known as digitalization. Now, to give you an example, if you are automating a paper-based process, or you are implementing a ERP system or a purchase order system. So basically, those are functional applications, help you to do your job, of course, a little better. But in terms of the value, particularly to your end customers, it has a limited appeal. On the other hand, the digital transformation is actually a completely different ballgame. It is totally outside in. You put the customer, your end user or citizens at the center of the universe and start thinking that what could I do to better serve my customers or citizens or the end users. It is outcome focused, it is innovative, it is customer centric, of course, and service oriented. Your objective is to provide a better service, not just automating certain processes. And in the process or in the bargain, you start seeing things that you need more integration with multiple departments because you are providing a service to a customer. For example, let me give you an example. Let's say your business licensing. Today you issue maybe in like 2 months. A lot of countries are still at that level. But you decide that, okay, I need to issue business licenses in 2 weeks. Fair enough. What do you need to do? You do not only need to automate those paper processes and internal approvals, you may need to integrate with other departments, other agencies across ministries to ensure that you orchestrate the process correctly so that you can deliver that business license in two weeks' time. So it's not just digitalizing or automating certain processes, but it's also looking at the whole process, and through process innovation and use of technology, you provide a whole new solution or a service to your customers and end users. So it is increasingly becoming important for organizations, the government, the agencies, ministries, to embark on this digital transformation because of the value that it brings to the citizens. Now, those of you who are familiar with this Gartner's framework of base layer application strategy. So at the bottom of that, we see that there are systems of record, which are your transactional systems primarily. Your ERP system, order management systems, inventory management systems, document management systems. So these are primarily your systems of record. As you move up the ladder, you want to provide a little bit enhanced service to your customers. You start looking at probably self-service portals, chatbots, okay, where the customers can come in and can get their necessary, the information that they're looking for on their own in a self-service mode. So you're extending the value of your system of records, your transactional systems, to create an additional value for your customers. But even more or even better is what they call the systems of innovation. So these are systems that extremely valuable from a customer's point of view. For example, the contract tracing applications you're talking about. Let's say we are talking about video analytics. In this scenario, we are all in this pandemic. We are talking about systems that could possibly detect whether people are maintaining safe distance or not. It not only brings value to the organization, but also creates value for the society. If you're able to maintain safe distancing, if you're able to detect if someone is wearing face mask or not. That, in itself creates a tremendous value for the society and benefit for the society. So these are applications, what we call the systems of innovation. In Singapore, I'm sure some of you have heard about it. We have implemented something called Moments of Life, proactively engaging citizens from birth onwards through their, education needs, through their healthcare needs, other social needs, through a system called Moments of Life, or a process called Moments of Life, that is proactively delivering services to the citizens. So these are systems of innovation built on, of course, the systems of records and systems of differentiation, but of significant value. Now, this is what we call the digital transformation paradigm. The challenge is there's still a big gap out there in terms of skills. As you are implementing systems of records, certain generic skills, database skills, application development, Java, Python would be required with some, of course, some process knowledge. But as you start going up the ladder, implement systems of differentiation, systems of innovation, there you need specific skills. Say video analytics, artificial intelligence, blockchain. So these are specific skills that are, or specialized skills that are required to deliver those systems of innovation, part and parcel of the digital transformation, and create high value impact to the society. Now let's look at how these digital learning, digital transformation initiatives need to be aligned with the learning journey. And that's the whole new learning paradigm I was talking about. If you look at the digital transformation model, you start with the outcome, right? Because you are primarily following or trying to provide a solution to your end users, your citizens, your customers. You start with defining an outcome. You don't start with technology. You start with defining an outcome first. What do I need to provide? What will create value to the customer? Then you decide, okay, what kind of operating model do you need to implement or orchestrate? To issue business licenses in a shorter time frame, you need workflows for approvals from different ministries, maybe Food Safety Authority or the Environmental Authority. So those are organizations, departments, or agencies that's outside of your own organization. But you need to integrate with those. So you need to orchestrate that operating model. What am I going to do if I am to issue the license within two weeks? And then you select what technology do you need to orchestrate that entire end-to-end process to deliver that outcome. Now, the learning journeys need to be synchronized with that. Once you've selected the technology model, you need to identify certain solutions, okay? This is what I'm going to deliver as a solution or as a project. Oftentimes, it is packaged as a project. And then you need to pick up those skills, specific skills or specialized skills that you need to deliver or need to have in order to deliver that solution. And of course, after you've completed that initial training, you need to apply the knowledge to develop a prototype or a pilot to test out whether it's working or not. So this synchronized learning journey has become extremely important and extremely necessary for this new learning paradigm for two reasons. One, there's a skill gap out there for specialized skills. Two, you don't have time. You can't spend a year to get people to learn things and then deliver. For example, the contact tracing app, the Safe Entry app. We are in the middle of the pandemic when we needed to deliver something very, very quickly. We need to deliver something in weeks, if not days. So you don't have time. So you need to find a way to pick up this new specialized skills targeted at that outcome and quickly deliver that. So that brings us to that new way of learning, which is what we called the outcome-based learning approach, which is, in the words of Bruce Lee, what I heard, a successful warrior is an average man with laser-like focus. And this is absolutely true in this case. You can turn anyone from your group into a very focused, very dedicated resource, focused on that outcome, and deliver that outcome in a very short period of time, if you have that laser-like focus. So our outcome-based learning approach, essentially, this 6 or 7 point I've listed here. So starts with defining a specific measurable outcome that you think will deliver real value to your citizens, to your end users, customers, businesses. And set a minimum standard. Don't compromise here, because we are talking about value. We are talking about creating high value service or solution for our customers. Then commit resources, absolutely necessary. You cannot run with, if you deliver this digital transformation unless you have dedicated resources working towards it. Then you curate learning journeys. And that is where we come in. We curate learning journeys which are focused on picking up those skill sets that are absolutely necessary to deliver that outcome. It's not a generic skill set I'm talking about. Tomorrow, in future, it might become generic, but not today. Still, there's a skill gap today. We deliver that learning journey focused on that outcome, and then let them apply that knowledge right there during the class, after the class. Now, here's the main point. You cannot let them learn things in a classroom mode or an online virtual classroom and let them figure out themselves how they want to implement it. Providing support for resolving the challenges that they might encounter after they start implementing it or testing it is absolutely essential and a critical success factor for this journey. And then once you have supported them adequately, you test the prototype. If it's successful, hopefully it will be, roll it out. And then once you have achieved a certain value, then target a higher standard. Improve on the solution. Aim higher. So this is our outcome-based learning journey model. In terms of the program structure, this is how we would like to implement it. We have been implementing it for some organizations already. Starts with a pre-course preparation. We work with the organization to understand their needs, understand the outcome that they want, provide feedback from our best practice knowledge, from our experience through our experienced faculties, help them craft that outcome so that it's optimal, achievable, and they can really work for it. Then we deliver a learning journey curated for that particular outcome in an online mode. We can do it in an offline mode as well, but now, as you know, in this pandemic, we are actually, kind of restricted, but we didn't give up, right? So we created the same online experience that they would have otherwise got in a physical classroom. Real-time, instructor-led, interactive, hands-on sessions, and they're domain-specific and sector-specific, because we want to have that laser-like focus, not a generic set of skill sets. Now, the third component, which is prototype development. We come in, help them address those challenges, roadblocks, any advice that they need along their journey of, let's say, next 5 to 6 weeks. We want them to be successful. And we deliver that remotely, working with them very, very closely, critiquing their application development process, helping them analyze their models, advising them with new things that they could test so that they can overcome any challenges or roadblocks and deliver or develop a prototype that is a working prototype delivering value. And then we help them summarize the findings. We do an assessment and also provide feedback for future enhancements. So this is this whole cycle of this program. My personal favorite is Learning Without Borders. You can be anywhere in the world. We are able to deliver this. And we have been delivering this over the past few months. So what is our value proposition in this? Is that we help you identify critical factors for success and the capabilities that you need and the gaps that you have today. We even work with you to create, fine-tune the solution or the outcome that you are willing to implement. And then deliver a customized program that helps you succeed. You can leverage on our collective experience. We have a large number of faculty at NUS ISS with a complete spread of different domain expertise, which you can leverage anytime. And then, of course, the whole objective is, with this, we hope that you minimize the risk of your implementation. So the bottom line to us, and I'm sure to you as well, to do it right the first time. Because you do not have time on your side in many cases or many occasions. For example, the contact tracing app, the video analytics, mass detection. You cannot wait 6 months to deliver that. So you have to do it quickly. Not only that, you have to do it right the first time. And that's the new learning paradigm that has necessitated this outcome-based learning approach. Now, at NUS ISS, we not only deliver a learning journey, get you up to speed, help you develop a prototype, and then go away. We also are doing research. We have advisory support at any stage of your implementation process, right from strategizing to rolling out a solution. If you need any help, if you need any expertise from our faculty, we always have that to support you. Let me give you some examples. So on the research front, our current research initiatives are Smart Nation, data, infrastructure, manpower, just to name a few. Okay. In the Smart Nation area, we are creating maturity models, which I'll explain very shortly, that helps you to understand where you are on your Smart Nation journey. And what do you need to do next? Where are the gaps? What are the limitations? And help you craft a roadmap for success. Along the data, enterprise data strategy covers a whole gamut of different areas, from analytics to governance to data lifecycle. We support you with that. Digital infrastructure, the cloud becoming increasingly important for the services 4.0 and probably 5.0 very soon. Cybersecurity, undoubtedly one of the key areas of interest. So we are doing research in that area. In terms of your manpower, how you deploy your manpower insourcing, outsourcing, and what are the skills, how you manage your projects. So we have lined up some research along those lines as well. And we do this together with the lessons that we have learned from Singapore, as well as global best practices incorporated in it. So for example, if you're implementing a data analytics project. So one of the major issues today in some of these projects are that they are very disconnected from the business. So business and technical solutions really do not go hand in hand. And that's a weakness in many organizations. So we have created a framework that marries these two so that you don't miss out on anything that you should have considered upfront. And you can leverage this framework. Just talk to us. Drop us an email. We can help you with that. On the smart government journey, and this is my personal favorite and passion, you can say, we firmly believe that a digital government strategy doesn't work unless there is a smart government working behind it. You can wire up your whole city, whole country with sensors and video, CCTV cameras, and you can collect petabytes of data every hour. Doesn't help if you cannot act smartly, proactively on that data. So underlying a smart nation is not just the capability to wire up the whole country with, or whole city with sensors. It is how you leverage the data to provide proactive service to your citizens. And that is the key component. And that requires a smart government. But it doesn't happen overnight. Singapore started this journey about 40 years ago. But that doesn't mean that you will take 40 years. You can leapfrog. So we have tracked how this journey happened. Started with simple applications, services of process improvement. Then creating innovative services for the citizen. So that's the next level. And when these services needed a few ministries, few agencies to work together, the whole of government concept came in. And then the maturity stage moved to a whole of government. And then finally, we are talking about the smart government, where everything is integrated, but at the same time, personalized service to your citizens. So we have mapped this journey into 5 maturity stages, starting with ad hoc process improvement initiatives, projects that do not really link with each other, to a more aligned framework where you are aligned with your strategy, your overall objectives, for example, like SDGs, and you create services that leverage capabilities from multiple agencies. And that's where you move to the next stage, which is integrated. You are integrated government delivering integrated service to your customers. Behind what you do, 4 agencies, 3 agencies working together, doesn't matter. The citizen doesn't need to know. You are providing a service that's integrated seamlessly. And finally, I think the nirvana is when you are able to provide personalized service. The elderly care reaches to the person who exactly needs it. Not just creating a hospital with state-of-the-art facilities, but the person who needs it. And that's the personalized service that is needed when you really want to be a smart government. So we have mapped this journey. We can apply this in a whole lot of domains. For example, smart city, smart healthcare, education, citizen engagement. So just to give an example here, many of you know about the ASEAN Smart City Framework. It has mapped 6 different focus areas. We can actually assess a city's maturity along those 6 focus areas and say that, hey, look, in the civic and social, you are in stage 3.5, but you are lagging behind in health and well-being and safety and security. We can do a quick assessment and help you understand the gaps. We can help you chart the next roadmap that, okay, my health and well-being and safety and security are lagging behind. What are the issues? We go deeper into it. And part of this assessment will cover that what are the issues. So we help you not only to implement, learn things, but also to understand where the gaps are so that you can create the right outcome to begin with. So end-to-end support from EGL, you can leverage on. So the end-to-end support is for your success. Starting from the strategic direction, right at the top left corner, where we work with you to create the desired outcome after analyzing the gaps that you have in the process. Then we can create or help you create the desired outcome as well as the technology solution that would address that gap. We can create and curate a learning journey for you to implement that solution in a shortest possible time. And then provide targeted support, not only to develop the product or the prototype, test out the pilot, but also along the implementation journey, you can bank on us. So this whole entire cycle of support from strategy to implementation, you can bank on us. And at the center of this, at the heart of this, is that outcome-based learning journey. Yes, generic skill sets are important, but today you need specialized skill set at a time where it's extremely important for you and for your citizens, for your end users. And we help you get there as quickly as possible. We are planning to also share our research through webinars from time to time. Two of the upcoming webinars I've just listed here, but of course we have a whole lot of other topics on digital leadership, risk management, AI governance, innovation ecosystems, as well as cybersecurity, to name a few, in the coming months. And we'll keep you updated on that. Be part of that. We'd like to hear from you. And we also would like to invite some of you who would like to be our guest speaker. Share your experience with us so that we can even enrich this webinar. So with that, I end my session here and open the floor for a short Q&A. Please feel free to ask questions. And those emails are there. You can drop us an email as well if you have a question later. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. And let's have some question and answer now. I would like to invite Ashok back on stage to take this question with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Debashish. So we have a few questions here. Let me start off with the first one. So this is about how do you determine industry needs? A good question. We, over the years, have learned to proactively engage stakeholders. Just to give you an example, we start with our board, which comprises of representatives from the industry. Then we have academic as well as the government. And we reach out to the actually practitioners, engage them in roundtable discussions, and then curate the curriculum for that, right? So maybe Debashish, you can talk about the research and will you be publishing it?
Yeah, so another question is, please share more about your research methods. We'll be publishing it. Yes, absolutely. As and when this research become available, we will publish it through our certain documents called viewpoints. At the same time, we will also let you know through these webinars from time to time. So stay tuned. You will definitely, and if you're on our mailing list, you will get this information from time to time.
Thank you. Let me take the other question, which is around curating country-specific, sectorial policies or sectorial curriculum. Now, this is an interesting question. As Debashish mentioned, elaborating on those few steps for outcome-based learning, we actually spend a lot of time. Like Einstein says, if he has 1 hour, he would rather spend 55 minutes looking at defining the question. So therefore, we spend quite a lot understanding the problem statement and spend a lot of time with the customer, with the context, with the countries, and then curate the solution around it. Hope that answers your question. Maybe you can take up the outcome-based learning approach.
Yeah. So the next question is, how can outcome-based learning approach and learning without borders connect with digitalization, please? Yeah. Good question. The digitalization, actually, as I differentiated the digitalization and digital transformation, the outcome-based learning approach has more close links with digital transformation. When you are looking at a specific outcome, a digital transformation is essentially a solution-centric, outcome-based process innovation that delivers value. Digitalization, yes, do deliver value, but less, I would say, limited compared to a whole digital transformation initiative. So yes, outcome-based learning, if you have specific needs for your digitalization needs, yes, we can still apply there. But I would say, you probably need a set of generic skill sets and generic courses, the programs, or horizontal skill sets. Pick from our 150 courses, look at that, maybe start there. And when you need specialized skills, we then move on to outcome-based learning. The primary objective of outcome-based learning is not just giving you the lessons, providing you the lessons, but also help you develop a solution that you are that you think is successful or make you successful. So that's the primary differentiator.
Right.
Yeah, hope that answers the question.
So there was another one relating to outcome-based on alignment to the outcome, which you may want to just elaborate.
I'm sorry, which one is that?
How do you contextualize the learning content aligned to the outcome for overseas?
Oh, yeah. So again, the distance is not a factor. Nowadays, you have technologies, collaboration tools that we can really work seamlessly with our, the organization that wants to embark on this. We work with them very, very closely in understanding their problems first or what outcome they need. So from there, for example, if you are looking at developing some capabilities on AI, just to give you a recent examples. So AI is, again, a very broad subject. So we work with the organization to understand what aspect of AI are you talking about? Where are you applying this AI to? So is it like in video analytics? Is it in natural language processing, or developing some recommender systems? So we understand that and work with you and then curate the topics accordingly. If you do not need video analytics, we'll probably not go into that, right? After some foundational courses, we split it into two segments. One is a foundational course. So there's a set of skills that you must have even before you talk about any kind of analytics or any other solution. And then we have some specialist topics like video analytics. We can have recommender systems. We can have natural language processing, etc. So we split that. So accordingly, based on the discussions, based on where you want to be and what you want to do, we can curate that.
Thank you. I think we have time for just the last question.
Last question, yeah. You take that.
I'll take that. Yeah. How are you engaging ASEAN countries? Now, ASEAN is very important to Singapore from both the geopolitical as well as a community together. There are several forums, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Singapore, as well as there are other associations whom we are talking to in order to engage them in an effective manner. right? So with that, I think we'll end this session here. We thank you again for taking time off to join our sessions. And there is a QR code there for feedback. We look forward to your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much and have a good day.